Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I'm your host, Jay Cluett, and on this show, myself and my regular co-host, Mark Hoffmeyer, have been through the entire Deep Blue Sea trilogy, scene by scene. Now looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films. It's films featuring, directed by Renny Harlin, featuring sharks or aquatic action, and this is the latter. This is aquatic action, no sharks this time around. This is the second of our 5-part mini-series. Mark is not on these episodes. He's on every other show. He's not on this one. We're looking at the Pirates of the Caribbean films. This is the second one. This is Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Not Pirates of the Caribbean, the next one, as I called it on the last one of these, because I forgot Dead Man's Chest. What is Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest? Well, it's the second Pirates film directed by Gore Verbinski. It's out in 2006. Still written by Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio. Starring most of the people from the first one: Johnny Depp, Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, Jack Davenport, Kevin McNally, Jonathan Pryce. Lee Arenberg, Mackenzie Crook, and now adding the likes of Naomi Harris, Tom Hollander, Bill Nighy, and of course, our boy Stellan Skarsgård here in this film. And I cannot talk about this film alone. I need someone to give me a hand. He's helped me all the way through this franchise. I sat down today at my just kind of record, and suddenly, just like appearing from my microphone as though part of the scenery, he just emerged out, spewing seawater, eating crabs, just leaking all over the place. 100 years before the cast. It's Nick Rehak. Nick, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me back, man.
Thrilled to have you back. So happy to have you here. You're part of the very fabric of my podcast, it seems.
It feels like it, but it feels good, you know? To me, it does.
And so this is the second Pirates film. We kind of went through the whole thing plot by plot, beat by beat, in a very slapdash fashion last time around. Because it turned out neither of us were as prepared for that show as we maybe should have been.
No.
But we had a fun time, and I hope the listeners did as well. This time around, it's another kind of confusing, convoluted, jumping all over the place plot where the characters are after numerous items, namely a key and a chest. And there's a map to the key to the chest. Inside the chest is the heart of Davy Jones, and whoever controls the heart of Davy Jones controls the ocean, and lots of people are after that kind of control for various reasons. So let's get into this one. Before we started recording today, you gave some thoughts as to how this film compares to the original in your perspective. Would you like to repeat what you said and explain yourself?
I prefer this film to Pirates of the Caribbean: The Black Pearl. Now, Black Pearl is an outstanding film. We've talked about it at length on the last episode, so feel free to pause, listen to that, and come back to it. But for me, this one is just that much more enjoyable across the board. Everything is just turned up. You know what I mean? The banter is turned up. The action sequences are turned up. Everything is just bigger and grander, but still feeling natural within that world. It doesn't get so big and grandiose a la a Fast and Furious film where you're like, oh, okay, this is a bit much. Even when they're escaping in these spherical wooden cages later on in the film, it still feels like a real fun thing. And at no point is it like, all right, let's just get through this because this is getting a little ridiculous.
This is the pirate film that invents both zorbing and pole vaulting.
Yes.
And I hate to correct you, they're not wooden cages. They are bone cages, my friend. Those are
Bone
cages
cages
made of the bones of their fellow pirates who are no longer with them.
I like to think of it as wood cages because it's Disney and it's fun.
I mean, I don't disagree with you.
There's got to be some wood in there.
There must be. There's always something like bamboo with various things to hold all together. I don't disagree with your take that this is better than the first one, or at least more enjoyable, because it'd been a while since I'd seen any of these films, but I think most of what I had remembered from this franchise came from this film. The giant sword fight on the water wheel. Freaking love that sequence. I haven't seen the film for a long time, but I have just gone to YouTube and watched that sequence. I just really love that. I do that sometimes. They're just scenes. I went through this says a lot about me. I went through a phase of my life where I'd come home from work and be like, I want to watch the opening of Saving Private Ryan. I want to just watch the beach landing. That's gonna make me feel better about my day. Or the insect scene, the bug scene from King Kong, Peter Jackson's King Kong, where they're at the bottom of I love that sequence. So many people hate that scene. I was recently a guest on the King Kong Minute podcast. The episodes are not out yet, but I requested that sequence, and they were
I
like,
would hope you
"Fine,
did.
no one else wants that scene, so you're welcome to it." We have so many
That's
guests.
just how specific it is.
The amount of guests who are like, "I'll take anything apart from the bug scene," and I only want the bug scene.
Bring on the bugs.
I love that scene so much. And in fact, the Kraken, however you want to pronounce it, this one has some similarities to the those toothy penises that eat Andy Serkis in that film. Have some
delightful.
Yeah, there are some
Veiny.
similarities to the Kraken. And listeners, if you're concerned as to did I find any rum since the last time we recorded, I could not drink rum. So yes, I am enjoying a fairly heavy pour of Dead Man's Fingers. Because it's
There
a
you
Dead Man's
go.
Chest, it seemed appropriate. I have some Kraken rum, but this one's like 2/3 of the name of the film is on the name of the rum. I had to drink Dead Man's Fingers. Maybe I'll have Kraken next time for World's End.
You'll Kraken into it.
I will indeed. I got a litre of Kraken for my birthday recently, and I'm very happy to start working on that. So I will not convert litres to Imperial.
It's fine.
So
I don't blame you.
I'm
I
from East
wouldn't.
India
What,
Trading
two countries use Imperial?
Company. Sure.
Everybody else is at their metric?
So let's talk about the newcomers to the cast for you. So Stellan Skarsgård, going to talk about him first. Love the guy from Deep Blue Sea. What do you make of him, of Skarsgård as William Bootstrap Bill Turner? We heard about him first time around. Now we see him. He's part of Davy Jones's crew. He's got a starfish on his face.
I think
End of description.
I think he's great. Anything that Stellan's in, he's never disappointed me. If anything, he is stellar Skarsgård for sure. The only thing in the dice scene, and this I know we're probably jumping around a little bit and we'll get to it, but in the dice scene when they're playing dice, and just immediately when he drops and he calls it out, and Davy Jones is kind of looking at him and he's like, "Oh, call me a liar. Go ahead, like he immediately jumps onto it. It's like, ease up, pal. Bring it in so it feels a little more natural instead of just like jumping. That's the only moment where I'm just like, ugh, like it just kind of, it's a little jarring and like takes me out of it. But outside of that, like I'm in it. Like I feel his sadness and I feel his emotion. Like he carries that like as part of his body with all of the barnacles and starfish in his face. Like I feel the weight of like every word that he says as he speaks it, and it's like that's just a testament to how good of an actor he is. I
completely agree. I can maybe that scene where he feels a little off. He is kind of flying by the seat of his pants a little bit, and it's all like he's improvising. He had no idea what he was going to do, and he's just like, I'm diving into this dice game to try and save my son. Right? and whatever happens. And that's I really like that sequence. I like how that sequence is shot, especially when they're lifting the cups and it's sort of just like blackness around, and you can just see the tops of the dice. That's a great sequence. I love Skarsgård. Watched this film. My wife, she had no idea that was the same guy from Deep Blue Sea, because he's chameleonic. He has so much stuff on his face in this one. There's so much going on. He's not the easiest guy to see, but love him. And of course, he is part of the crew of Davy Jones, played wonderfully by Bill Nighy. Just the best. I mean, this film is how old is this film? Almost it's like 17 years old at this point.
Yeah, it's getting there.
The CGI holds up impeccably.
It does, doesn't it?
You can tell they spend a lot of money and spend a lot of time making this all work, and it's beautiful. There's so many like fully CGI characters, or mostly CGI characters. They all have actors behind them, so I guess they did mocap around it. But Bill Nighy is Davy Jones with all those tentacles going off all the time. He's sucking on a pipe. He's got this giant bulbous sack on the back of his head. He's got a slight Scottish lilt to him. There's so much. I just love every bit about the guy. The little pops he does when he's just kind of thinking, there's a little plop noises. Great, love him.
Anytime he's on the screen, he owns it.
Yeah. It's he. I feel like he gets not forgotten, but when people are like, who's your best villain from the Pirates films? I think people go for Barbossa more.
Yeah.
Just because Jeffrey
They're
Rush.
wrong. But
yeah,
that's...
I agree. I mean, we talked about it last time. Barbosa, Jeffrey Rush is fantastic in all of these films. He's outstanding. But Phil Knight Davy Jones. He's got like the big claw on one hand. He is the sea. I am the sea. Like oh, I love him so much. Great villain. Fantastic villain.
And just he comes in, and you the footsteps and the menacing claw, and then it comes to his face, and he's just like, "Do you fear death?" Like how he has the most badass lines in the entirety of the franchise.
Even some fairly innocuous ones, just like at the dice game when he was like, "I accept." The way he just says that with so much menace, so much later.
Yeah.
I accept. I can't.
And
my
choose the scenery left and right, but in the best way possible.
How can you not chew the scenery when you're playing a guy who has a squid for a head and you use those tentacles to play an organ? The scenery was baked for him to eat at that point.
Pretty much edible. Purposefully edible. The prop guy was like, "Hey, Bill, just so you know, this over here, feel free to eat it. It's delicious."
There's no craft service on this. It's just the set.
Who keeps eating the ship? I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, and I completely understand why it won the Oscar for for visual effects because of him. Like, plain and simple.
Was anything else even nominated? I'm gonna have to look this up.
I don't even know why they bothered. To be honest with you,
no
I think it was nominated for like 4 Oscars, but it definitely won the visual effects.
So it was up for art direction, sound mixing, sound editing, and visual effects. Which it
sounds about right.
Okay, so the other nominees for the visual effects that year were Superman Returns and Poseidon, a film we have yet to cover on this podcast, but that we will. We've done the Poseidon Adventure, we've done Beyond the Poseidon Adventure. We haven't done Poseidon yet because Mark wants to talk about that because it's got Kurt Russell in it. We haven't got that yet. So this, no contest. Superman Returns. What do they do? Make Kevin Spacey bald?
A bullet hits his eye, and that looks terrible. By the way, even back then it looked terrible.
But they put that in the trailer. They were so proud.
Yeah,
better job than I could do even today. But
totally. But
Dead Man's Chest just wins everything. And the previous year, King Kong won. So hooray. Got to talk about that as well.
Look at that, huh? Tying it all together.
So other newcomers to the cast, we have Naomi Harris as, I couldn't remember her name. She's playing Tia Delma. But I wrote down Moneypenny Witch. Was her character name.
Em is here waiting for you, James.
This the same year that same year as Casino Royale, but she wasn't in Casino Royale, so this is some.
Good for her. Not a blemish on her record.
Casino Royale is great.
Casino Royale's terrible.
Oh, you take what? Okay, we're not talking about that today. No, okay. What's wrong with Casino Royale? Derailed.
Just about everything. It's boring. It's one of the most boring films I've ever seen, and I just saw Last Voyage of the Demeter, which it put me to sleep nearly.
Another film that I had planned to cover on here at some point, because it's all set at sea as far as I'm aware.
It is.
Okay, so we might talk about that sometime. I don't know.
But I will say this. I remember as a kid, like when Naomi Harris came onto the screen, I'm fairly certain this was like the first time like seeing her outside of, I think she was in 28 Days, 28 Hours, something like that. She was that one. I remember seeing her in that, but I remember seeing her in this film and being like, I feel a certain kind of way whenever she's on screen, and I can't describe it.
Did you feel a touch of destiny?
Yeah, exactly. Now that I'm older, I know exactly what that feeling is. But anytime she's on the screen, I'm here for it. I'm like, please. But now I'm only ever going to think of her now as Moneypenny Witch.
I love her in the Bond films. I think she would have been a great addition to Casino Royale, one of the best Bond films. I don't understand your take.
You say she has things like that.
You say no blemishes on her record. She was in Collateral Beauty, a truly cursed film.
Yeah, but she was great regardless. I didn't even see it, but I'm sure she was great regardless.
Okay, slight detour on Collateral Beauty. Collateral Beauty is a terrible film. It's one of those films that was made to win Oscars. and won no Oscars. But so the trailer of the film, Will Smith, lead guy in this film. I think Naomie Harris is like his partner or his ex or something. I can't remember, love interest of some kind. Doesn't matter. She's not in the trailer, I think. So in this film, he's like down in the dumps, and then he's visited by three anthropomorphifications of human emotions or something. So death, love, and time, played by Helen Mirren, Keira Knightley, and Jacob Latimore, come to him like, I am death, I am love, I am time. And it's like, what the hell? You go into and you think, Mike, this is an interesting looking film. You then watch the film, and it turns out that they are actors portraying death, love, and time, hired by his friends. Kate Winslet, Edward Norton, Michael Pena. Phenomenal cast in this film. Also, Ann Dowd is in there as well. Can't go wrong with Ann Dowd. But then at the end of the film, spoilers for Collateral Beauty, it turns out, no, the trailer was right. They are actually death, love, and time. So this thing's set up in... Yeah. There's this thing
now I have to see this.
It's set up in the trailer like, these are the actual, this is death, love, and time. And then you go into the film and goes, wait a minute, the trailer lied to me. And it turns out the trailer told the truth, but that's the reveal at the end of the film. I am angry at that film. I saw that in the cinema. I paid money to see that film. Because I was
well, now we're at the root cause of it.
I was reviewing everything Kate Winslet was in. She was in this film. I wish she hadn't been. Blemish upon her career. So, Naomie Harris is in Pirates of the Caribbean, No Man's Chest, as Tia Dalma, the Moneypenny Witch, who is she sold Jack the magic compass that points to wherever he wants, or traded it with him, and so she is a witch of various powers and talents. And you say that David Jones steals every scene he's in. Naomie Harris walks away with all of her scenes as well. She's only in 2 scenes. She's in the next film as well, I believe. Just incredible performance.
Yeah.
And disgusting teeth. Just a black, gritty. Lots of. I didn't appreciate how terrible people's teeth looked in this film. So like in other like period films, or when people are in like horrible situations and they open their mouth and they've got like pearly whites and everything's all finished nicely. In this film, there's a lot of grit and blackness and horror in people's mouths. Like Mackenzie Crook, amongst others, has the worst of it. Just people's skin and faces, they're never clean. Like Keira Knightley is the cleanest of all of them at any given point, but everyone else looks disgusting at all times.
Yeah, which I appreciate though, because like you said, like I remember when I saw Hacksaw Ridge, pearly white teeth. I'm like, you're at war. Why are your teeth so white and perfect? No, it completely took me out of the movie, and I just didn't care for the rest of it.
You're at war. Act like it.
Yeah, have some dirty teeth. Do something, please.
And the other prominent addition to the cast is Tom Hollander as Actualist Lord Cutler Beckett. I love Tom Hollander in everything he's in, all the time, ever. He's great, and he is so wonderful at playing pricks, utter pricks, and he does that here very well. And I love it when he crops up. He's not in the film a lot, but the bits he's in, great. Love him. Everyone hates him, and he relishes in that fact. You a Hollander fan?
I like him. It's one of those things where I'm so used to seeing him in this way that when he pops up in other films, I'm like, fairly certain he's that guy. And then when the movie ends and I look it up and go, yeah, I was right, he was that guy. Yeah. I'm always happy to see him. It takes a second because I'm so used to very same with. Oh gosh, what's his name? Jack Davenport as Norrington. Like seeing him in other places, I'm like, yeah, it's Norrington.
I was trying to think if Tom Hollander has ever played somebody who's not a terrible person, and it's it's not looking good. About Time is maybe the best case, but even then, he's
Pride and Prejudice. He didn't play an awful guy. He was just kind of like bumbly. He wasn't a prick. It was just like, I don't know.
Which Pride and Prejudice was he in?
2005, 6.
I didn't see that one. Okay.
The one with
yeah.
Why can't I
the
think
one
of
with
her
Keira
name?
Knightley.
Yeah, the one with Keira Knightley.
From this film.
Yes. Yeah, he played Mr. Collins.
It's a reteam. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else from that cast cropping up in here? No. Oh well. Yeah, I didn't see that one. I think I don't think I've ever seen any of the Pride and Prejudice other than and Zombies. Uh, I don't think I have. Huh. I've seen like Emma a bunch of times, different versions of Emma, or
Okay, that's
yeah, yeah,
close enough.
close enough, same thing. Uh, yeah, so Tom Hollander always very playing terrible people. In About Time, he's like a nice guy, but a bit of a drunk. I think like he's great in The King's Man. He's one of the few bright points of The King's Man. Did you see the Kingsman prequel?
Nope, didn't
He
even
plays
bother.
he plays George V, Wilhelm II, and Nicholas II.
Okay,
Like so the Russian, German, and English leaders at the time of the film.
hmm
But they're not like supposed to be like people who are all the same. It's just like these old guys in charge. They're all the same, and so he plays them all, and it's kind of fun.
that's kind of funny. I like
Uh,
that.
and yeah, they didn't do enough with that. But yeah, he's always like, he's the prime minister of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, but is a prick. Because he's the prime minister. That's what happens. He's always an evil guy, and I love it. I love it so much. Bird Box, one of his most villainous turns. Watch Bird Box. And he's just wonderful. I love him. Tom Hollander, the best. He should be Bond. Uh,
He'd be a fun Bond.
he would. I think he'd be a fun like Bond villain. I think at this point he's 55, so it seems a little old for Bond at this point.
Hey, yeah, I mean, Bond got old eventually somewhere.
They don't tend to start that old. I mean,
That's true.
Roger Moore was that far away when he started. Okay, so we have some pretty decent set pieces here. Actually, the film starts out on such a bummer of a note of the Keira Knightley Elizabeth, her rain lashed empty wedding. It's such a dour note to start on. She's like crying in the rain at her wedding that no one showed up to because everyone's being arrested, including her. It's such an odd note to start on. That's what I like it.
But it's so beautiful, though. Like, I think that's what grabs it, too, is it's so stark right from the beginning. It's like, whoa, were we watching the same movie? Like, is this the right film? I remember being in the theater being like, this is the right movie, right? And then when the actors and stuff pop up, you're like, okay, all right, I am at the right spot. Because it's just such a turn of pace compared to the first one.
Well, and the first one ends on such a like rousing, we're gonna let him get away. Let's go to sea kind of note. So it makes sense. You've got to bring everyone back down to a point of a lower rung on the totem pole to strive upwards again. That's just how films work. That's what happens. So we have that wonderful note, and then the introduction of Lord Cutler Beckett with the arrest papers for. I do like that little. He's a prick, but he's going to be even prickier than he needs to be.
Oh, yeah.
They're arresting Will, and he's like, "Here's the arrest warrant for Will Turner." And Jonathan Pryce is like, "This says Elizabeth Swann." He's like, "Oh, very well, arrest her too." It's like, come on, guy. Yeah.
Oh, whoops.
Oh, did I do that? I'm sorry.
Lord Commander, whoops.
I do like his. He's got like a little henchman. Also a bad guy with a henchman. What's his name? Mercer. David Schofield's Mercer. He reminded me of Spicer Lovejoy from Titanic. David Warner's character.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely see that. That's a good pull, man.
I mean, Spicer Lovejoy, one of my favorite characters and character names in all of film. Like, I don't think his first name is said at any point. They call him Lovejoy, but his first name is Spicer. Spicer Lovejoy. That's a wonderful name.
Hell of a life lived.
So yeah, they get arrested, and then we see Jack. Jack's out on the sea. He's got his magic compass. He's like, "Why is the rum gone? Why is the rum always gone?" Gets up, very drunk. Oh, that's why. I like these little comedic moments. Oh, they're nice. And then he meets up with Bootstrap Bill, who tells him that his 30 years as captain are up, which was a deal he made with Davy Jones, that he could be captain for 30 years, and after that he would be on his ship for 100 years. Not a good deal, I would say. 30 years for 100 years, bad deal, mistake. But then, how old do you reckon Jack Sparrow is supposed to be in this one?
40s.
So he would have made this deal in his teens.
That sounds about right.
Feels like the kind of stupid thing you do when you're a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the film came out 2006. Depp was born in 63. So he would have been 33? No, 43 when this came out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah, so he would have been 13 when he made this deal with Davy Jones.
Oh, I guess if I could go ahead and be the captain of this boat.
That's
Where do I
just mean.
sign?
Davy Jones is supposed to be a bad guy, but making that deal with a 13-year-old, that's harsh.
Easy money.
Like taking the soul from a baby.
Mm-hmm. Like ripping the eyes out of a prisoner, like a bird plucking your eye out.
That's it. You said this is a Disney film, so the cage is going to be made out of wood, but there are birds pecking out eyes in this film.
Yeah, hardcore. Doesn't really flinch either. Like, just shows it to you.
But that making a deal with a 13-year-old, that reminds me of Beauty and the Beast, where the singing furniture, it talks about, like, we've been here for 10 years, we've been rusting, doing so much more than dusting. And the prince is said to be, this is his 21st birthday. So this prince was 11, was almost 11, he was 10 when he made his deal, when he was rude to an old lady who scared him on his doorstep.
Yeah.
A 10-year-old. That's just...
What else is going to happen?
Right. His parents probably said, don't let in people, and then this witch arrives, and he's like, oh, I'm scared, and then she turns into someone closer to his age, and he's like, oh, no, come in. And he's like, no, you're cursed. Beast. I'm going to put in something that's alive. Probably, I assume. I mean, everything else is alive in that castle, the toilet probably as well. That's not a fun existence. Well, how do we get back to the film? Where were we? How did we get it? How did we get here?
Like a Talking Head song.
Bootstrap Bill.
Yeah, so we're Jack. 5 minutes in.
tells Jack that his time is up. He's now due back at the Flying Dutchman. Mm-hmm. Great, well designed ship as well. The Flying Dutchman. I like the
it is
design of that ship with that big kind of mouth at the front of it, useful for stowing away in later, it turns out. And he gives Jack the black spot, which appears on his hand. Horrible black spot. And tells him the Kraken! Davy Jones's beastie is after him. And maybe he's at sea. He'll find it, so of course, Jack's like, to land. Let's go to land. Everything will be fine if I go to land. And so they go to land. And we'll meet up with him later. Meanwhile, Beckett tells Will Turner that if he goes and finds Jack and gets the compass, then he'll spare both his and Elizabeth's lives. Seems like a fair deal. It's just a compass. Who cares about a compass? But it's a magic compass. It shows you what you want. So Will sets out after Jack. Meanwhile, Elizabeth is escaped by her dad, by Governor Willie Swan, Dalton Price. He doesn't wear that wig to keep his head warm. He's a governor, and she escapes. He gets arrested, etc. And she finds her way onto another boat with a crew of actors who I swear I recognize from other things. All of them are like, I've seen you in a bunch of British dramas and TV series, I'm sure, but I don't know any of your names. One of them is Stephen Spears, who plays Tarpals, one of the Gungan, like Jar Jar's CO in The Phantom Menace. He's voiced by Stephen Spears. But they're all just like, you have a familiar face, but I don't know where you're from. And I looked up all the CVs, and they all have familiar faces, but I don't know where any of them are from. So I think I'm just remembering them from this film. But she's stowed away there. Will traces or tracks the Black Pearl to this island. He speaks to a bunch of people. One of them is Robbie Gee. Do you know Robbie Gee?
No, not ringing any bells.
He's from Snatch, a film I adore. I haven't seen in a decade. He's one of the kind of lower level crooks in that, who are trying to make the dog a diamond. And he's also in Paddington 2.
Probably where you know him from most.
I mean, I know him from both of those things. I've seen them both the same amount of times. Paddington 2 has been out significantly less. I love Paddington 2. So Will chases Jack to the island, finds the Black Pearl. Turns out Jack has been C-3PO'd into the lead of this cannibal tribe, where everyone else has been captured into the wooden bone absorbing cages, leading to just a delightful escape sequence. of Jack with a spit across his back. He's running. He pole vaults. It gets covered with fruit. When he makes that pole vault and he lands, and he kind of looks up and the fruit all starts sliding, and then it all just tips him over, and he just gets wedged in the crevice and unraveled. Great scene, only equaled by the escape scene with the other guys in the boat. And there's two boats. I love the pirate mentality of like we're all the same crew.
Mm-hmm.
We're in these two different cages. We only really need one cage to crew to man the Black Pearl. So sod everyone else. we're suddenly at war with these people we've randomly been placed with. I just love that mentality of you never trust anyone at any point ever.
Pretty much, that's what the pirates become, and it's so funny too when that realization happens. It hits everybody at once, and it just adds to that level of hilarity because then it's like, who do you root for? What team? I mean, obviously you're going to root for wherever Will is.
Well, the cage with the named characters in rather than the cage with no named characters in.
Yeah. I forgot what it is. It's I think a show parodied or a movie. Somebody at some point they were like, "Oh no, we're all going to die." They're like, "No, there's like 4 main characters in here. We're going to be fine."
Yeah. It's in Rogue One, not Rogue One, in The Last Jedi, when the ships are a really slow chase. And all the ships getting picked off one by one by the Empire, whatever they call these days. And you have the one ship that's got everyone on it. Like that frustrates me because there is no reason why that ship wasn't picked off.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I like the film overall. I'm not one of those people I hate The Last Jedi. I like it overall. It's got some great stuff in it.
Sure.
But it's just the fact that it's that we survived by chance. We just survived by chance, and I don't like that. Anyway, here. Not important because here the team that survives is because they're not ticks. The other team are like they're gonna keep climbing when it's deemed they shouldn't climb because the guy might hear them and he grabs a snake and it falls and hey, there we go. So they get out and then you have like roll the cage, lift the cage like it's a lady's skirt. Is a line from Gibbs. Sure.
And then the movement too. Like that's when they figured out like, oh yeah, duh.
So they get away. You get the return of Johnny Depp's the Jack Sparrow run, the flailing run that he does so well. Also the iconic like the eyes painted on his eyelids and the eyes on his face was pretty key look. I remember coming from this film. I remember seeing that around quite a bit. Just the marketing for it. So they get away. They leave the dog behind. It's always upsets me that they leave the dog behind. I hope the dog becomes the new king.
If only there was a way to find out.
Because whilst they're all there, Mackenzie Crook and Lee Arenberg as Rigetti and Pintel show up with the dog, the key dog, and they ready the pearl. But yeah, the dog stays behind. Sad times. Because all of the cannibals chase the dog. Not that keen on the depiction of the cannibals, but it's a pirate film. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, it's some things. It's just like, well,
yeah,
here we are.
They don't stay there a long time. They mean there is like signs of intelligence amongst the cannibal team. They have. Let's move on.
No, Jay, keep going.
No, I'm gonna move on. So Will is now reunited with Jack, and he's like, Jack, I need the compass. I need to save Elizabeth. I need the compass. And Jack's like, so you want to save Elizabeth? What do you really want? He does this a lot in the film. It like tries to get people to think what they want is what Jack
and then like
wants.
A weird shaky thing, and then hand it and steps away, and then takes a peek.
We're going that way. We have a heading. So he hatches the plan to. He wants to get the key to get the chest. Because inside the chest is Davy Jones's heart. So first he needs to get the key. So he needs Will to think of where is the key, and then the compass points to that. Meanwhile, Elizabeth on the other ship of characters, she's doing some fantastic puppetry, which she's bought a dress on board and is stowed away as a cabin boy kind of thing. And people find the dress, they think the ship is haunted. I like the captain there. It's like, oh, it's not haunted. There's just a lady on ship, and she's probably naked. And everyone just runs around trying to find her.
And they're like, where should we go? She like burns Tortuga in fire. Where should we go? Hey, what's over there?
Yeah, I mean, it's excellent puppetry. She's doing like such a great job because she made it go past the captain's quarters and then all around and pointing, all with like one bar with the. We should have had Todd on this episode to talk about the puppetry of this dress. He'd have had some things to say, I'm sure. Like
Yes.
this is impossible. She couldn't do this. But yeah, she must have taken ages to spell out Tortuga in Lamboy or whatever she used. This is like something Mark should work out how to do in one of his data posts. How long did it take to spell out Tortuga in Lamboy?
Yes. That needs to happen.
So they head to Tortuga. Meanwhile, Jack heads to the Dutchman and sends Will over to try and steal the key. But it's really, he knows that that's not the Dutchman, that's a shipwrecked boat that the Dutchman is going to ascend upon, and then David Jones shows up and acquires some more souls, including Will. Because Will's like, I came here to settle Jack's debt. And
In the most badass way possible.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Did you know?
And it always tripped me out, too, when Jack's watching through the scope, and as soon as he pulls it down, boom, Davy's just right there like, hey, what's going on?
That's a great bit. I love when that happens. And they determine that, yes, Will's going to stay on board the ship, but Jack owes 100 souls because his soul is worth more than other souls. Fine. I do like his when Jack says, "I'll give you a soul, Will Turner's soul for my soul," and David Jones is like, "Well, one soul is not equal to another." So it's like, so you agree to my terms. Now it's just a matter of haggling. Oh, it's a nice little. Yeah, okay, you got him. Because David Jones, bad guy, but you sense he has an air of fairness to him. Like if he makes a deal, he'll stick to the deal. I think
for sure.
Yeah,
and I think he's like anybody. Like, oh, clever. Like you got me. That's a good one. I'll let you have it.
But Shivangu'd me 100 souls. It would have been 10, but 100, you bastard. So he's already done one. He's given Will over. So he needs to find 99 more. And so they head to Tortuga, also where Elizabeth is heading, to find some terrible people that won't be mind being dispatched to Davy Jones's locker. Meanwhile, Will now on the Flying Dutchman, he meets his dad, Bootstrap Bill. Between them, they've managed to drop a cannon. So then Bootstrap has to give his son 5 lashes. The first time they've seen each other since Will was a kid, and it's 5 lashes. Not the greatest of family reunions.
Just so weird.
It is a very odd scene because it's like compassionate lashings.
Yeah, it's your kid. You hit him. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. This is for your own good.
It's just David Jones being like, "Hey, this is gonna be fun.
Mm-hmm.
How can I be extra mean?"
Pretty much.
And then between them, the two Turners hatch a plan. They make the dice bet so Will can see where the key is. Then he goes and steals it from Jones's Jones's squid-like neck. He's asleep at his organ.
It's right from his face.
Yeah,
which a very tense scene. Even when he hits that organ, just a littlest drop, and he's just like kind of shakes a little bit. Like that's one of my favorite scenes. Like that's one you talked to earlier about just hopping on YouTube and watching the beginning of Saving Private Ryan. That's a scene where I would hop on and just like watch that moment again and again because it's so well lit and it's just so much of the detail on his face. So these little finite details and almost like each little tentacle's got its own personality almost. Like it really shows in that particular scene. Like I feel like that scene alone is what propels them to win that Oscar.
I agree, and the dropping of the tentacle on the organ, like there's so much weight to it. It's like actually it makes the noise, and it's all very believable. This is a heavy, like tentacled face. David Jones is not a small guy. It's not just in the face. There's a bulk to him. There's so much going on. I mean, other than Bill Nye, apparently the likes of Jim Broadbent, Ian Glenn from Game of Thrones, Richard E. Grant, Christopher Walken, and Ian McShane were considered. Ian McShane will obviously come back as Blackbeard. I think he would have worked in this. He's got the right kind of voice that would have worked as well.
I think he would have worked, but I think the film becomes more menacing and it becomes darker than what it is. Even though it doesn't look it, Bill Nighy brings a bit of light to it, and I think that's what you brought up when you say your point that he's a fair guy and he sticks to like the deals that he made. And also, at the end of the day, like Davy Jones is just a lover scorn. You know, he's just a sensitive guy whose heart was broken, and he's just going to destroy everything in his path. He's going to do so much to try to get this girl back, if you will, or woman, however you want to phrase it, to get this person back. And while I think Ian McShane could have done that, I don't think we would have gotten the full effect that we did with Bill Nighy.
I agree. And Jim Broadbent feels like an interesting like what could have been, because he's not normally that villainous. He has played like bad guy roles, things like spoiler, Hot Fuzz. And but even then, he's like a very bushy beard kind of guy. He's always like a friendly guy who turns into
he just comes popping up. Oh, you fear death, do you?
Oh, I accept your terms. Oh.
I've got 5 twos.
It's a little
what
bear.
Have you got?
Bingo.
Go ahead, beat your son.
5 lashes. Here we go.
Let's count them out loud, everybody. 1. All of a sudden, he becomes Mickey Mouse. Oh boy, that's 2 lashes. I know you got a 3rd in you. Oh my goodness.
Oh, and so would Minnie Mouse be Naomi Harris? That's
Money Penny Witch. I don't do a good Minnie Mouse, so I can't. I'm not even gonna attempt that one.
Mouse Penny Witch. So sure. I'm trying to think why did they go to? Why did they go to the witch? Why did they go to her to start with?
They go to her to figure out how to get to Davy Jones' heart. Because if you control the heart, you control the ship.
Yes.
No, if you control the heart, you control
the ocean.
Yes.
Okay. And they trade the monkey, the zombie monkey. Where's the monkey? I want something to shoot. The undead monkey payment is a fun gambit as well. So yes, they go to Tortuga. In Tortuga, they all meet up, and also they meet up with Norrington. Jack Davenport back in the film, over an hour in until he shows up. Things haven't gone well for Norrington since we last saw him, because he was last seen letting Jack Sparrow go. So give him a day's head start, and they do, and then they chase him, and then they try to sail through a hurricane, and I think he's the only one who survived that, and so he's lost his crew, his title, everything. Elizabeth went off with Will, etc. And he gets recruited to Jack's trio. I did like that. What's my story? The same as yours, with one chapter behind. And then like later in the scene, he gets thrown into the pig swill, pig muck, where we found Gibbs in the first film. So it's exactly right. It's the film behind. So that was nice. And we also get just a terrific brawl. Norrington kind of starts a brawl in this bar. Elizabeth joins in to help him. Jack's trying to find a hat because his hat got taken by the Kraken. And it's just a really fun sequence. It feels like it was put in there because the filmmaker, like Babinski, kind of checked his watch and was like, "Oh, we haven't had an action scene for like 15 minutes, so let's chuck a bar brawl in. That'll be fun." And it is fun. I like it. It's a good time.
And not only that, it works. It doesn't feel out of place. It doesn't feel forced. Like it's Tortuga. Of course, there's going to be a bar fight.
Yeah. And there is. So then they head out the next day. They have a crew. They only really got 5 people, like 5 souls to give to Davy Jones. So I'm not entirely sure what their plan is now. But hey, they've gained 5 guys. So good for them. I did like after he meets with Davy Jones, Jack Sparrow's quote of "I feel sullied and unusual" is a nice little quote as well. So they go from there, and now their plan is to go to the island where the chest is. So now Jack is saying to Elizabeth, "You want to save Will? What do you want? You want to save Will? What do you want? You want to save? So this is heading here." And so they find the chest based on that. But my part of the film I don't like that much is she's now in a love triangle. I don't like love triangles in films. I disappoint whenever that happens because she's now part of her wants Jack and part of her wants Will, her forever love, who's just not there at the moment. Therefore, she's now looking at Jack, and I don't like that as much. I mean, yeah.
It does feel kind of like, I don't want to say cliche, but it's certainly, I don't know. It does feel weird, like at times when it
feels
happens,
like a producer note of we need more
Hmm.
romance in this film. This
Yeah.
needs to be a 4-quadrant film, more romance for the ladies.
Yeah.
I'm sure that ladies are going to like the swashbuckling and the. I mean, Orlando Bloom takes his shirt off so he can have 5 lashes on his back. That's for the ladies, surely. And I just don't like that. I don't know what I want. Jack doesn't know what he wants. The company's going over the place. Elizabeth now doesn't know what she wants because the company's going to the chest, but also to Johnny Depp. And and I just I don't like it that much. But hey, fine, whatever. This film needs to be 2.5 hours long, so they got to pad it somehow. So they go to the island. Where is this island? It's Isla de something.
Isla de Muerta?
That was
Or was
the
that last
first
year?
film was. I guess it doesn't really matter, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. But I'm going to keep reading the Wikipedia page whilst talking a little bit slowly, just to see if something does cross up. And I
See if a
can't
word
seem to do
pops
it
up.
because I'm not very good at scanning reading whilst talking slowly, so I'm just going to say they head to this island. When we started watching this, my wife was like, "Is this the one where they go to the island?" I'm like, "Yes, if it's any of the Pirates films." Because that happens in all
Isla
of the
Cruces.
Okay. You're better at reading things whilst not listening to what I'm saying.
No, I'm listening to what you're saying. They all go to an island, though. Even there's a much bigger island scene here that's kind of reminiscent of Good, the Bad, the Ugly. But
Yes.
we also get a much bigger one in the next one. But we're not here to talk about the next one. We're here to talk about this one.
So this one, the island scene is everyone shows up at this island, apart from Beckett, because he's still back at the East India Trading Company. So he doesn't leave his office. He rests them and then doesn't leave his office the rest of the film. Fine. So you have everyone shows up here. Will is stowed away on the. Oh yeah, that's the point. Will got separated from the Black Pearl. No, he escaped from the Flying Dutchman, went to the ship that Elizabeth stowed away on. That got chased by the Kraken. So then that got taken out, and so then we went and stowed away back on the Flying Dutchman. He could have just stayed there and saved a whole bunch of people's lives. I don't feel like that is dealt with enough. He sees them being killed because there were no survivors, and they will all get killed. That's not the right Scottish accent. That's all you're going to get, I'm afraid. There's a bunch of Scottish. I can't do the naive one that he's doing this one. I'm not going to. No. So you see Will watching them get killed, and he get a little look of remorse, but then it's gone. He never thinks about it again.
Nope.
So he's stowed away there, and David Jones has taken a ship to Isla Cruces, whilst Jack is there with all of his crew trying to find the chest. They find the chest. Norrington digs it up, and they open it, and yes, there's the heart inside. Well, they just listen to it, and because they haven't got the key, because Will's got the key, and they hear the heartbeat inside the chest.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. I mean, you're supposed to hear a heartbeat inside a chest, just not normally that kind of chest.
I always thought it was creepy. Not just like a normal level of creepy, but like a really intense, like, ugh.
I mean, when you see the heart later and there's little barnacles on it, that's fun.
It's weird because it's not what you're thinking, but it
Yeah.
just looks like a heart that's been cut out.
Yeah, I'm always thinking like they I don't think they survive very well out of water, like limpets, whatever they are, and yet here they are on a heart. But
just hanging out.
My wife queried as to how the Kraken managed to stay inside of the Flying Dutchman ship, and I'm like, there's a zombie monkey in this film. What are you talking about? This isn't the kind of film to query with logic.
You see them running on a water wheel? Yeah, probably not.
You see that guy who's actually a hammerhead shark, but is a guy, and he's got one eye out on the side of the hammerhead shark and one in the middle of it. What are you talking about?
Stellan Skarsgård has a starfish on his face.
When he speaks, seawater falls out of his mouth.
Constantly. And he's just okay breathing.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's the squid guy plays the organ. It's fine.
As you do.
It's all fine. So I did like Mackenzie Crook summarizing the plot for us all. I do enjoy a good plot summary for anyone who's just showing up halfway through. But he does it in such a flowery way that's
Mhm.
not helpful to anyone. Yeah. Like Norrington's after some kind of lo trying to bring back his old life, some lost valor. Uh, Captain Jack is trying to save his own skin, and Will is trying to settle some unresolved difficulties between him and his erstwhile father. But yes, true, but but that's not not that helpful. But he's great in these. I think he doesn't. He and Lee Arenberg, they both do a good job. It's like we need to add some jokes here and there. Let's chuck these two in. They're buffoons. They're gonna
Mhm.
like. It'll be awful nice if we stole that temptation away from them, and they just run off with a chest they can't open. Uh,
Do,
well,
do, 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 do.
as then this leads to one of the best sword fights in all of cinema, in my opinion, of
Yes, I
these three
love
guys.
a good sword fight, and I wish they happened more and more and more and more and more and more, even when there's no need for it. I just want to see two guys at a bar, and they're getting in a fight, and one of them gets punched, and they fall over the bar, and the other side they look around, and they go to reach underneath, and rather than pull out a gun, I just see somebody pull out a sword, and then just sword fight for no reason. I love a good sword fight.
And a lot of the sword fighting in the scene is often for little to no reason.
Hmm.
But it's all fun because there is a key. Is this whole sword fight is after one key that Will has and just gets passed between them all. But at certain points, Jack has the key and leaves, and Will and Norrington keep fighting because Jack says like that Will's one who ruined Norrington's life fairly, and so Norrington's like, well, okay, vengeance it is then, and just keeps fighting him with no key to be found, and the fight takes them. They start out on the beach on the sand with Elizabeth watching, and just the sword fight just heads off into the distance, like way away, and she just kind of stands there yelling at them for being stupid. And just whip out our swords and hit each other with them. That's how
Yeah, start
mature
banging
men
away at
behave.
each other.
And she pretends to faint and swoon, and yeah, it's ridiculous. And I like that they have characters standing aside saying, "What you're doing over there is ridiculous," but we don't care. It's fun. Cut back to the sword fight. And because it happens a few times when they're up on the wheel and the wheel goes past a few people, they often stop and look and go, "What the?" And back to fighting. Because the sword fight takes them to this kind of bell. It's a bell tower that also has a water wheel next to it. Fine. So they go up and they're fighting up the staircase, and then like sand was been thrown into Will's face, and like, by your leave, Mr. Turner. And then then Norrington has the keys up the stairs, and Will goes up to the bell pull, and by your leave, Norrington. Uh, um, and then they get onto the water wheel. The water wheel must be rotten at this point because it cannot take the weight of two men, whereas previously it could take the weight of a lot of water. So I'm going to guess it's just dilapidated and rotten. And then it's just these two. This fight on a giant water wheel, and Jack's in a grave for no reason. Just fell into a grave, and leaving the grave, he got picked up by the wheel and starts spinning. And the key is on a hook, and it's just an incredible scene. It's like it's so because it's a lot of it is practical. I think it's entirely practical. They're on a big wheel.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
I
lot of
believe you're
stunt
right.
work going on, and they're in the wheel and they're fighting, and he gets knocked out and falls out, and it's just fun. And then when the wheel eventually falls over and they're dizzy, it's just Will and Norrington trying to continue fighting. I haven't been spinning on a wheel for 10 minutes. Is terrific. Don't feel like that sequence gets enough credit for
Mm-mm.
being one of the best sequences of the franchise, probably, if not the best. I don't know. It's
They hit a lot of peaks in this movie. I feel like as you watch this film, I feel like the producers and them, they knew like, hey, we're gonna do a third one. Like we have an idea for the next one, but in case we don't get to do it, let's put all the stuff that we want to do in this movie. And they really do that. And I
yeah.
think that's what makes the later films harder to kind of enjoy is because they're like, well, we have to outdo ourselves because we already did what we wanted to do. So now we have to do these things in order to, you know what I mean, up it and keep your attention and everything like that. Because it's too good. It's
Well,
almost too good.
they wrote this one and World's End at the same time and shot them back to back. So I think they always knew they were going to get a third one, but they didn't know what would happen beyond that, which we'll talk about eventually. But yeah, this I don't remember a lot from the third one. I'm looking forward to revisiting it, but I remember two sequences, and I like one of them. So I'm just looking forward to
I
seeing
think
what
I'm
else
with
is
you
in
on the
that
two
really long film.
sequences.
I remember the bit with the crabs.
Yep.
I freaking loved the bit with the crabs.
Mm-hmm.
And then Keith Richards being in it that's what I remember from that film.
He is in that one. That's right.
That's my two memories. Oh no, and there's all the stuff with Chow Yun-fat that I remember as well. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
as Sao Feng. But we'll get there. That's a different film. We'll talk about that one later. So whilst the wheel key fight is occurring, you have Elizabeth Rigetti and Pintel with the jest, but also they get set upon by Davy Jones's men. Davy Jones cannot set foot on land for 10 years, for nigh on a decade. And so his crew go out after him instead. What did you think of his crew? Any standouts of these horrible bunch of misfits?
Just the Hammerhead. They're all terrifying,
Yeah.
though. That's the thing. They're all terrifying, and I don't understand. I mean, maybe because they've been in his stead for decades and decades, but I feel like if I have Davy Jones walking towards me, I wouldn't know what to say. I would just be like, yeah, you got it, boss, and then just run off and get away from him because he's just so imposing and such a menacing figure. Like I don't know how they do it and how they stay comfortable. I mean, even Jack, like he's still just like he knows he's getting away with some things, he's beating it, but it's just like whoa, like it's just.
Yeah. Well, there seems to be like ranks among the crew. So there are people who have just started, who are like pushing the wheel around, or who are it's like a Stellan Skarsgård's kind of level, who don't deal with Jones that much. And then there are his like second in command, the Hammerhead guy, is like the bosun, who seem to have been more familiar with him. So they're like friends at this point, almost. But I was wondering the kind of, not that we should apply logic to these films, of course, but when you become a member of Davy Jones's crew, people like Stellan Skarsgård, he looks mostly human, but he's kind of developing like a rock pool kind of thing with like a starfish on him, and his face is looking a bit craggy in places and barnacles and things. Did the one guy gradually start turning into a hammerhead shark? Or did he just like sign up and the next day he just woke up and he's gone full hammerhead? How do you reckon that occurred? Because there's the one guy who's become part of the ship where his brain is now like stuck in, he's like coral, and that
I've never thought of that before.
This is what I think about. Because there's the one guy with a detachable head. Was that it just happened? Like immediately he had a head that was a crab that lived in a shell, or did one day his head just felt like a little bit pointy, and the next day got a bit pointier, and then his neck got a little loose, and it just over time suddenly his head can be separated and he's just still alive, if that's living.
Maybe it's a thing where, because in the beginning, so when we were just talking when Davy Jones meets up with Will and the initial batch of people, and he just slits the one guy's throat and throws him overboard. Maybe for Hammerhead, it was an instance of, I'll join the crew or 100 years in the locker. However, maybe he pushed him overboard and he was eaten by some Hammerheads, and like his death became him. Like this evil event is what turned him and made him to be, and that's why other people with the coral, they're serving time, and so they've just kind of aged with the ship. They've become old barnacles, if you will. So sure. I'm wondering if that would be my read. It would be that, or it could be Moneypenny Witch.
Yeah, that could work. Yeah, part of some kind of curse on there as well. What would you like to, if you were part of his crew? What would you like your thing to be? What do you want to turn into?
Ooh, I'm not gonna lie. Like I the squid is really badass. Like just all those tentacles arms. Looking like a big beard. You know what I mean? Like
you can do more stuff with them. Yeah.
I would want to go, and maybe this is just because I'm, a Baltimorean. I'd go lean more towards a crab.
Sure.
Just a big hard shell, claw for one of my arms or something, and just in my chest is just one big hard shell, something like that. Something just crab-like. I think that'd be fun. Maybe like an eel for an arm or something crazy like.
Yeah, I like that one guy's got a sawfish arm. I think it's like a swordfish with like the chainsaw teeth on it. It's like a sawfish. It's one of those for an arm. I was thinking sea turtle.
That'd be fun.
There's not a sea turtle.
Because you don't see that a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe there is a sea turtle crew member, but he's kind of older and slower. He's just kind of in his shell, and he's just lagging back. He'll catch up with you. He's just taking his time.
Keep stirring the soup, Sheldon. Okay. He's the cook.
So
Ah.
so they're having their Elizabeth are trying to get the chest off of Pinto and Rigetti, set upon by Jones's crew, and so they kind of join forces. They have two swords between them, so they're kind of chasing. One of them's got the chest, and one of them like calls for a sword and chuck a sword, and one calls for a sword, chuck a sword. At one point, Elizabeth calls for a sword despite already having a sword, which she has a sword and is like calls for a sword, and so she has two swords, and then the other guy calls for a sword, and so she throws a sword to the. It just I would have liked to tighten that choreography up a little bit so that one guy's calling for a sword that she throws it, and then she calls for a sword and the first guy throws it to her. That's what I think would have been better. But there we are. Can't have everything. But ultimately, this leads to they all run around. They all get back to the little longboat that they've sailed away on, and Norrington gets there first. He sees that Jack has a jar of dirt, which he got from Moneypenny Witch, which he put the heart into. But then Norrington takes the heart out of that. Leaves. He pretends to be all heroic, and I'll take the chest and I'll fend them off. And so he heads off, and Jones's crew chase him with the chest. He has the heart as well, but it's in his chest. Whilst everyone else gets in the longboat and goes away. Will haven't been knocked unconscious, but of course, Davy Jones has not been satiated. The Kraken's still after Jack.
Yeah, it is.
The Kraken shows up to the Pearl. Will has seen the Kraken take out a boat before, so he thinks that he has an idea of how they can stop this happening, but he is wrong. Because there's a Kraken, and you cannot stop that. It's not going to go well. But he tries. You got to try.
Yeah, you do.
You got to try. And the plan is the Kraken, which is all tentacles. Did you see the Meg to the Trench?
No.
Okay, no spoilers for Meg to the Trench, but there is some giant octopus tentacle action in Meg to the Trench, which pales in comparison to the stuff in Dead Man's Chest. This is better tentacle stuff. Yeah.
So if you like tentacle stuff, this is for you.
Yep. Sure. Also, Mark and I will be talking about the film Tentacles very soon.
Perfect.
But also, tentacle stuff in Dead Man's Chest better than tentacle stuff in Tentacles. Tentacles is an unusual film. I'm looking forward to talking about. Yeah, that episode's going to go some places, I'm sure. So Will's plan is wait until all of the tentacles are surrounding the ship and then just blow the heck out of them.
We've said tentacles way too many times.
A bunch of times.
Short amount of time.
We're on a list now. We're on a tentacle list that I can't seem to get away from. So wait until the Kraken's sucker-covered arms surround the ship and then attack. Just launch all the cannons at them, which just angers the Kraken. Just pisses it off. So the backup plan is get this big net, fill it with all the gunpowder, eventually fill it with the rum as well. Numerous times we have all of the pirate crew like shocked and concerned with something somebody says. Like when Jack says, "Don't go back for my hat," all of the crew are like, "What?" It's the same reaction here when Gibbs is like, "The rum too." It was like, not the rum. So that's all fun. So the plan is to get all of the explosive stuff into a net and then shoot the stuff when the Kraken has it. They shoot it too early. When it's all up in the air, they need to wait until I think that's in its mouth. But fine. Mm-hmm. Jack takes the lifeboat and sails away, but then changes his mind and comes back again. And they determine that, yes, they've angered the Kraken, but they can't really stop it, so abandon ship. And they abandon the ship, but Elizabeth stays behind. And semi-seduces Jack, kisses him, shackles him to the boat, the rail. Will sees this, but then they head out and leave Jack to it. The Kraken arrives. Hello, beastie. He manages to pry his hand out of the shackle with some lamp oil. Lamp oil again. The Kraken spits his hat back at him with just so much phlegm. So much.
Like a disgusting amount.
Too much. We've heard a bunch of times that the worst thing about the Kraken is its breath. As everyone seems, this is horrible beastie with breath that comes from the depths of hell. I was like, hang on, it's a giant monster that's going to eat me. I don't really care what it smells like.
Mm-hmm.
But the last thing you smell is it's still gonna die either. Whatever I smell, I'm dead seconds later. This isn't the main concern here. But so it roars at him with all the phlegm, and Jack's like, it didn't actually smell that bad. And then he draws his sword and goes into it face first, sword flailing. And that's the last we ever see of Jack Sparrow. He is dead, never comes back.
Forever. In just the most badass kind of way, too. Let's be honest. Like, when I saw that happen, I was like, that's how I want to go. Like, truly, just staring down death in the face with a sword and being like, here we go, it's me and you, babe. And then just wham. Covered in mucus, of course.
Yeah,
just,
I mean, that's a given. Yeah.
Not even gallons. This is like dump trucks of mucus. That's the perfect word for it, Jay.
It's too much. So only the featured crew people survive. Everyone else got taken out by the Kraken. The Kraken hates extras, just hates background players. They're the tastiest, it seems. But all of the ones who have names or are a bird survive this and head out in the longboat. And they go and see Moneypenny Witch. They go back to her, and she decides, or they have a conversation where one of them says, I just wish we could bring Jack back. And she just puts up behind him, would you do anything? Would you bring him back?
Would you go to the end of the earth? I mean, maybe, I guess. Well, if you're going to go.
She was just waiting for someone to say anything. They're going to say it. Would you bring him back? Bring him back. I've been waiting for you
now.
And would you sail to the ends of the earth to bring him back to the depths of hell? And you'll need someone who's sailed these waters before. And coming down the steps, Geoffrey Rush, Barbossa, eating an apple juice dripping down his chin, unzombified monkey, or regular monkey, on his shoulder. End of film.
And just looking dead down the camera, right at you. Like, I still get chills thinking about that scene. I remember being in the theater, losing my mind as he comes down the steps, being like, "There's no way! It's oh my god!" Like, it's in my mind still one of the most incredible moments, not just in this franchise, but just in film in general. Just him coming down the steps and everybody's eyes. The eye work in this film is incredible. Everyone's eyes are just like, if you were to somehow edit this and only show eyes, you would still have such a compelling and fascinating film. Like, just everyone's reacting to like every single thing that happens, but it's just so much bigger and grandiose. And when everybody literally just steps back as here comes Barbossa down the steps, like, it's just, and you get so amped and you're ready for another 3 hours of Pirates, but then it's just credits, and it's the ultimate, like, look at this, can't have it, done. Like you said, credits, done and over with. It's
you
like,
3 more hours? Wait a year.
Yeah, like, ugh.
This ends on 4 different cliffhangers. This film ends on, because you've got Jack has been eaten by a Kraken.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Davy Jones finds out that he doesn't have the heart anymore. He opens the chest and there's no heart. He's like, Sparrow! You've got
Gone!
you've got the return of Barbossa eating an apple. He's like, what's going to happen next? And then we kind of skipped over it. Norrington has gone back to Cutler Beckett and given him Davy Jones's heart. So it's like, oh, the worst person has Davy Jones's heart and controls the ocean.
Yeah, the last person you want.
So what's going to happen now? It's a great cliffhanger in true, like, Empire Strikes Back kind of fashion of hands in carbonite, etc.
This really is the Empire Strikes Back of the trilogy.
Yeah, but when people talk about this franchise, they talk about the first one, and then they just say the rest of them are not great, and
that's not true at all.
Sacrilege. I don't know if I would say it's better than the first one. They are both excellent. I'd say they are both like top tier action adventure films. I recommend them both. Strongly.
I would give this one just a couple inches above Black Pearl, personally.
Okay, I think that is fair. Yeah. I skipped over it. The sound that the tentacle suckers make when they're kind of coming out of they're in a cannon hole. And then one comes out of the cannon hole. It made a really satisfying, like, really satisfying noise when it came out. I don't know. I just made a note of that noise being great. I just had to come back and say that. So good. Did you have any other thoughts on the film, or are we good? We covered
No,
it.
just the eyes, man. Just the eye work and the reacting. I feel like everything in this film, they just took the first one and amplified it and just added to it and made it a greater and grander adventure than the first one.
Agreed. So, how is Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest similar to Deep Blue Sea?
Yes.
Short list, not that long of a list. A bird dies early on. We're
What?
kind of...
Come on. That's.
It's a similarity. A bird dies. We actually didn't mention it. Like when we first see Jack, he's emerging from a floating coffin. He makes his method of finding the scrap of material that has the picture of the key on it that we're shown 27 times in this film. He's hiding out in some guy's coffin, where a bird lands on it as it's floating in the sea, and he shoots the bird from inside the coffin. And then he paddles with the guy's leg. So good. So the bird dies. There is a pet bird that talks. Stellan Skarsgård is in this, and at various times he does not look good, which also happens in Deep Blue Sea. A ship is destroyed. There is a big plume of water, which is that ship that gets destroyed in the start. A character is sedated when Will is knocked out by a blow dart. There is a prison break. Mackenzie Crook reads the Bible, as does Preacher. There are beings that eat humans, the Krakens, and they are cannibals, and we like to think that Sam Jackson's character was a Wendigo, so cannibal. A key is worn around the neck, and there's a big explosion at the end of the film. So not the most similar to Deep Blue Sea film, but there's some similarities.
There's some straw. There's
Sure.
straw on your list.
Sure. And how deep and how blue is this film? Now, when I found a mistake when I did when I was editing the Curse of the Black Pearl episode, in that my spreadsheet I hadn't quite formatted it correctly. This is entirely my fault. When I'm covering films that are on Disney Plus, when I pause them to get a time code, I've not given a time of how far it is into the film. I've given a time of how much is left of the film. So I have a different spreadsheet to format that, and I'd forgotten to tinker with it a little bit, so it wasn't quite right. So Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl was actually less deep and less blue than we first thought. It's I'm sorry, Nick, but it's 0.44 meters or a foot and a half up in the air depth wise, and 19.45% blue. As you know, Nick, Deep Blue Sea is 14.5 meters deep, 31% blue roughly. Do you think Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest is deeper and or bluer than both Deep Blue Sea or Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl? Where do you think it compares to both of them?
I think this is, of the three, Deep Blue Sea, Pearl, and this, I think this is the most shallow of the film. It's not the deepest.
Okay.
I want to say it's between Deep Blue Sea and Pearl as far as blueness goes. I don't think it's as blue, only because there's not as many night shots as there were in the first one because of all like the skeletons and stuff like that.
So you think this is bluer than Deep Blue Sea, but less blue than Curse of the Black Pearl?
Yes.
Given that Curse of the Black Pearl was less blue than Deep Blue Sea.
Other way around then. Wait,
Okay.
hold on. You're saying it like that. I'm also going to say it's the least blue as well. This is the least deep and blue of the three.
It is. You are correct in terms of it being the least deep.
Okay.
Because all of that stuff up with the cannibals is like up on a big hill. So this actually works out at being close to 8 meters up in the air.
Okay.
So it's like 23 feet up in the air, which puts it between 12 rounds and Ghost Ship. Ghost Ship has a lot of up in the air action, because like the ship of Ghost Ship is quite a tall ship.
What a surprise!
So it is our 60th least deep film. Blueness, it is actually between Deep Blue Sea and Curse of the Black Pearl.
I should have stuck with it.
25.6% blue. There's a lot of all the stuff on the island with the wheel chase. So much blue sky, so much blue ocean. There's a lot of blue sea. There's very few actually under the water shots in this one.
We see the leg of Davy Jones like in the beginning, but I feel like that's about it.
The Flying Dutchman does go under the sea a couple of times. but it's only a little bit, and we see there's a few shots of the dress as it's kind of sinking, but there's not a lot actually below the surface. When Jack's having his little meeting with Bootstrap Bill, I consider that below deck, below surface. But yeah, so this is our 31st bluest film, 31 bluest film. It's bluer than Ghost Shark, less blue than Cutthroat Island, another pirate film. Well,
Okay.
so it'll be interesting to see how the Pirates of the Caribbean films all kind of turn out in deepest and bluest between each other. And when I say interesting, I mean for me and for you and for no one else. I'm sure some listeners care, I'd like to think, but there we are. So that'll do it for our discussion. Nick, what have you got to plug? You have a new podcast since you were last on. You may have two, actually.
I think I do have two new podcasts. Well, the first one, Lyrical Innuendo. Bubba Wheat and myself, every episode, we take a look at a song and we determine, is it about sex, drugs, or just good old-fashioned rock and roll? Recently, we discussed Every Morning by Sugar Ray and had a lot of fun and some huge revelations on my end from Bubba Wheat and what he brought to the table. So definitely check that episode out. And the newest of the new for me, I was invited by Jason Soto to join his show Play MST for me. It's a fun little play on Play Misty for me. I have never seen anything Mystery Science Theater 3000 related, surprisingly, ever. Jason is a huge lifelong fan. So Jason decided to bring me along on this journey, and we're watching every single episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000 from the beginning in chronological order. The first episode, we discussed The Green Slime. We talked about the film, talked about the pilot episode, and I had a whole lot of fun. I'm looking forward to what comes next. So check both of those out. They're on Spotify. They're over on rabbitholepodcast.com. Go check it out.
I have also never seen MST3K.
Yeah,
should I?
The select episodes after this first one that we did, which I'm not gonna lie, not great, but the potential is there for it to be like a whole lot of fun. So we'll see how it goes. And ask me next time I'm on the show, and I'll let you know how it's going.
Okay. And I have been enjoying Lyrical Innuendo.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am listening to the songs often for the first time that you're talking about. These are not songs I tend to be familiar with.
And the nice thing is, because it's on Spotify and the way that it's set up is we can actually put the song into the episode. So you'll have just heard the song and then we talk about it. So that adds an extra little bit of fun to the episode, I think.
Or you can do what I do, which is not listen through Spotify and listen through Apple Music. So I listen through Apple Podcasting. And so at that point, I pause, head to Apple Music, find the song, and listen to it there. A much more laborious and labor-intensive process. But how I do it. So there we are.
That too. Hey, if it works, it works.
Great. And listeners, you can hear Mark and I on other episodes of this podcast that you're listening to right now. So just however you found this, keep finding it. And you can find all of Mark's stuff over at moviesfilmsandflicks.com and various places that he writes. And you can find my writing at lifeversusfilm.com, but there's nothing there. Why would you do such a thing? And you can find this show on all of the social media, Instagram, Facebook, and whatever other things may be called at any given point of the day at Deep Blue Sea Pod. Next week, what are we doing next week? I don't even know what we're doing last week when this comes out. That makes sense in my head time-wise, but next week, Mark and I may well be covering Tentacles, as discussed earlier in this episode. So check that out. That film that came in the wake of Jaws, featuring more octopus arms and far fewer sharks. So come back next week for Tentacles. But as for today's show, as for Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Thank you once again to my mini-series co-host, Negriak.
Thank you, Jay.
I've been Jay Clue, and I'll Deep Blue see you next week. And this, of course, is the end credits audio scene of this podcast, in which, since I've now rewatched World's End, the next film in this franchise, And there was a closing credits scene. I was like, was there a closing credits scene in the previous ones? And there was. And you see the bloody dog. So, said earlier in this show, I hope after the dog runs off, the cannibals chase it, you never see the dog again. And then at the end of this the film, you do see the dog again, which has revealed that I, and presumably Nick as well, didn't stick around for the end of the credits when we watched our DVDs of Dead Man's Chest. So apologies, listeners. You do see the dog. The dog survived. The dog is now the king of the cannibals. Huzzah! And this is now the end of the podcast. Deep, we'll see you next week.